I guess with this population having such a strong social anxiety component and fear of judgment, perfectionism, we see in this population a lot, and making a mistake and sometimes high expectation parents on top of it, like you need to talk, you need to say hi to your teacher. Like there's all these different aspects. So they're speaking, let's say, Spanish at home, and then they go into an English speaking preschool, at least from America. That's the more typical, like going into from a different language into an English language. And they've got the social anxiety, the high sensitivity, some of these kids. And now they're like in this school and they're still, like you said, they're thinking of things in their own language. So I see it exaggerated because of that high expectation for speech too. So this goes back to that treat to speak method of you need to speak and you should speak. And they're so focused on speaking that the kids become very avoidant as well. And I imagine that only exacerbates that natural silent period because now their social anxiety, their sensitivity, but also the push to speak can only exaggerate it. So what may have been an impetus early on, that behavior of avoidance and a higher anxiety around speaking is sticking around, Anna. So even though if they had just almost like, I hate to say it, but let them be a little bit and respect where they were at and meeting them where they were, that those children may not have developed a full-blown SM, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think that especially when they go to kindergartens, the role of the teachers there and the support workers is to show them or to meet them halfway. So know few words in the language that the child speak because it's to do with familiarity. And when we are familiar with something, and that is across the board, that's something that we see, something that we smell, something that we feel, something that we have inside us, then all those neuronal synapses like oh, they're calming. As I'm talking to you, for example, something that really calmed me was the smell of my granny's cake. So every time I used to go to her house and I smell that cake, ooh, I felt quite calm. Children are the same. So if from a language standpoint of view, if the teacher was to say, oh, gracias or danke, whatever language the child speaks, the child on the other side, without expectation that the child has to say it back, is I am accepting, I am embracing. That's very much we take the child as an individual. And it will also make the child feel, oh, you know a word that I also know, especially again for those children that, are learning English in our case as a second language. So language is not seen as anxiety provoking, but unfortunately it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. So let's get into, like, I call it the meat and potatoes, the treatment, school-based accommodations. So how do you integrate both languages into treatment, and do you do that? And if so, how? And then we can kind of talk about that.
So was very much in the early part of my work. I don't really do a lot of treatment nowadays. So I do a little bit, I do more teaching, just because so many people don't know enough about SM. But if I can integrate both languages into treatment, I would, because as a multilingual speech and language therapist, if I had a Spanish, an Italian, or a French speaker, we always evaluate what is their L1, which is their language that they feel most comfortable with. So if I don't know that language very well, they're obviously still multilingual, I will use it in play. I will make myself a couple of, is a list of words. I will always make a space for it. And in the same time, I will have the parents involved to teach me a word or teach me a sign, because I want to show them that I've got an interest in their culture. That obviously based on what we've talked about earlier. Are both parents from the same country, or is it one parent, one language? Whatever that is really to create that power of shift that the child feels proud. Oh, I know, or you're trying, or maybe in my case, I want them to laugh at me. Because I'm being funny, and that's something is one of my superpowers. So many bilingual children fear of being heard speaking their own home language, so their L1, because the one that they told me is they will laugh because I'm speaking differently. They're also, when this happens at school, they are also worried about being laughed at or sounding different when they speak English. And that happens in my own experience when they are from parents that they are from the same country. So, for example, both parents are from Poland, grandparents are from Poland. They spend a lot of time speaking Polish. So, actually, from an output point of view, from a phonological point of view, their ability to articulate English with the accent of the place where they are growing up is slimmer because they don't practice. They might sound different. They know that they sound different, or sometimes they maybe have not developed all the sounds, right? So part of my job is for them to shift and to build that superpower muscle, really to make them see that their multilingualism is a superpower, and rather than it's something that people will laugh at.
I love how you talked about the superpower. It's like a big shot role. I call it the big shot role, you know? And some ways that we integrate it into treatment is if you have a family, and I'm just going to use Spanish because, I mean, we could say Italian, it doesn't really matter, but that's what they're speaking at home. But yet the child goes to an English speaking preschool or English speaking school, that to have designated times where the entire family, not just that child, is speaking English. So we will set timers, and it might start with simple words like colors. It might, it might be reading, because reading is easier than just talking if they're able to read. And so we start with these designated timers, and not to isolate the child out a lot, but yet as a family we're learning, because some children are very sensitive to this. So we will do that. Also, that superpower, right? Or that big shot role of teaching a friend. So the concept of comfort, connection precedes communication, all of those basic SCAT in my world, the CBT based program, obviously I'm passionate about, is about helping these children cross the social communication bridge and understand themselves. And so to me, that all those concepts of the buddy process, the small groups, not, understanding progress doesn't happen in the middle of an assembly. So at home with a get together, or in a small room, or in a spot in the classroom, building those connections with a few kids at a time and giving that child the opportunity to maybe teach colors or shapes or simple words to other children in their own native language. I've had children that have been completely mute, and then they come and then all of a sudden you see them, but yet you give them the opportunity to teach you something, the big shot role, right? They start to talk just from that. If they have they have appropriate language skills, that's not an issue. They're talking. And even kids with speech and language challenges, one or two words is usually, that's not usually that difficult. It's the expressive language that's more difficult. But teaching others that language has been amazing. We do this at Communicamp all the time, where kids come and that they may speak different languages, and they're like proud of their language and their culture, right? So we utilize that superpower, that big shot role. And it's amazing how that is a bridge for them to communication. And then once they have that opened up, they will then transition into more English words. So we use that kind of bridge. How do you feel about that? Do you like that?
I absolutely love it because you are starting from a place of safety, from something
Yep.
that they can do really well. You meet their children where they're at. And one of the techniques actually that we use in SLTs is role reversal. So you can do that with language. So, oh, now I am the child and you're the teacher. Can you teach me that
Yes.
sound, for
Yes.
example?
Yes.
So if we do that in terms of the language, it's amazing. So something really funny that I want to share, I'm sure you know that already actually, the Italians speak with their body, right? But we definitely have our own sign language, or we add gestures, which are really, really funny for people that they're not grown up in Italy, that they mean a lot, and children absolutely love it. When somebody says, what do you want? And they use their hands like that. And people just say, what is that you're doing with your hand? That is quite funny. But if a child was brought up with parents that do that all the time, they find that bread and butter. That's what everybody else does, right? So I think that you're right. There is the expectation. Oh, but you spoke yesterday in the shop. So why can you not do that in assembly? And that blows my mind. It's a different situation. There are different expectations. It's a different language. So we need to teach both teachers and parents to help their children to celebrate small steps and make them realize they can also teach others what they know. I love it. Absolutely love it.